So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh no.
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot, and you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.
Finding someone that understands you is hard because you're human, and there's a lot of different humans out there. eHarmony helps you find someone you can be yourself with. You think no one would understand mourning a plant like it's a loved one, or singing made-up songs to your dog, but that's the type of person eHarmony helps you find. Someone who makes you feel seen, heard, and understood. Get started today on eHarmony. Get who gets you.
You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 131. Until you do this, you have not even begun to explore your potential. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to 2024. It's a brand new year full of new possibilities. How is your bucket list 2.0? Did you make one? Are you fired up about it? If you missed the chance, go back and listen to the very last episode, episode 130, and get your bucket list upgraded for the new year. We're going to get your new year started right by thinking about how much employees at McDonald's make. What? Have you ever worked there? Matthew Kelly talks about this in his book, Off Balance. What determines how much money you make and therefore how valuable you probably are to McDonald's? A winning smile? A can-do attitude? Patience? Speed? Accuracy? How good you look in that visor hat thing they have you wear? Do they still wear those? But the answer is, it's the time horizon for which you're responsible. If you work the drive-up window and are therefore responsible for 90 seconds of progressing a customer through the line, you probably make minimum wage, which in Utah is $7.25 an hour. If you're a shift manager, you're responsible for an 8-hour time period and probably make around $15 an hour. If you're a store manager, you're responsible for 3 months of progress and make around $20 an hour. If you're a regional manager responsible for the next year of progress, you'd probably make around $40 an hour. And if you're the CEO responsible for 20 years of progress or more, you make $20 million a year, or about $10,000 an hour. That's a pretty big difference. I started thinking, what if we paid doctors that way? Like, the one responsible for keeping you alive for 10 minutes made minimum wage, and the one responsible for keeping you in good health till you're 90 made millions. I quickly realized that you don't want a trauma surgeon who makes minimum wage cutting you open to have a look around and determine whether you'll live for 10 more minutes. But here's what I do think. What makes a cashier at the drive-thru at McDonald's good at their job? Maybe they've gotten good at discerning what people are saying through that tinny microphone and speaker. Maybe they know how many seconds they have between cars and they can fill up 2 drinks while the next car pulls forward or something. I don't really know. Maybe they're really good at being friendly to jerks. But there are definitely things, and I think they should take pride in doing those things well. But you don't get to $10,000 an hour by getting 1,000 times better at cashiering. Make sense? It's still a 90-second stewardship. You have to move up the hierarchy of time you're responsible for in order to be more valuable to your employer as a company. The McDonald's CEO doesn't use his microphone listening skills to make $20 million. But in medicine, we use treatments for short-term problems that kill you quickly to treat long-term problems that kill you slowly. And it's not working. Drive-through skills are different than corporate leadership skills. In order to put more years lived in good health into your life, you need the CEO timeline and perspective. If you don't want to shrink back as you get older and slowly stop living before you die, you need to do things differently than most people. If you know this to be true but are frustrated or feeling stuck or disappointed in yourself for not making the changes you know you need to make to create a different outcome for yourself, perhaps the problem is your time horizon. Most people tend to overestimate what they're able to get done in a day. I know I'm very guilty of this almost every day. I always think I can get 16 important things done in the 16 hours that I'm awake. And I never do, pretty much. And I'm always surprised. Why is that? But while we tend to overestimate what we can do in a day, we often underestimate what we can do in a week. We sell ourselves short. We know we only have 7 days and that we might be at work on 5 of those days, so we don't see how much opportunity there is to make an impact. We also tend to overestimate what we can get done in a year, but underestimate what we can get done in a decade. In his book, Off Balance, Matthew Kelly says, if you want to change the trajectory of your career, change the period of time you deal with and think about. If you want to change your life, change the period of time you think about. So the first step is, don't be in too much of a hurry to create the ideal life you have imagined. Personal and professional satisfaction are built like a castle, one brick at a time. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a week. In the same way, we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade. So take the decade view. Give yourself a decade to build the life you have imagined for yourself, one that is rich and overflowing with personal and professional satisfaction. Until you take the decade view, until you begin to imagine and plan what you can do in a decade, you have not even begun to explore your potential. End quote. When he keeps saying career, I'm thinking health. If you want to change the trajectory of your health, change the period of time you deal with and think about. And until you take the decade view, until you begin to imagine and plan what you can do in a decade, you have not even begun to explore your potential. It's so good. Have you begun to explore your potential? Do you take the decade view? There's a Sanskrit word that I love that also kind of haunts me. I think it's brilliant, and I'm also sort of terrified of it. Arambashura. Have you heard of it? Congratulate yourself if you have. You are awesome. You win the Cool Listener of the Day award. Arambashura means to be a hero in the beginning. Big talk and lots of fanfare when you start something, then tiptoe out the back door as soon as it gets hard. A hero in the beginning only. Arambashura. Does it scare you too? The ancient Romans also had a word for this. It means stuck in the middle of a rugged mountain. You were a hero in the beginning, got halfway up the mountain, and stopped trying when things got tough. The word for being in the middle is medius, and a rugged mountain is ochris. So starting out with enthusiasm and giving up in the middle of your journey up the rugged mountain is mediocrity. So what drives mediocrity or arambashura? It's a good question. I'll bet you have some good answers. I wish you could tell me what they were. I think it could be lack of endurance training. You haven't developed stamina. Maybe you get distracted by short-term pleasures that keep backtracking you down the mountain. I think a big part of arambashura is focusing on the end goal, visualizing success like everyone tells you to do, seeing the achievement as the solution to all of your problems, thinking you'll be better in some way once you get to the top of the rugged mountain. It's not really a decade view because you're not thinking about the entirety of the journey. If you want to be a hero in the end rather than the beginning, you have to be realistic about how hard every step of the journey is going to be. Hey, I wanted to briefly interrupt to ask if you're curious about female bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, the kind that's usually started around the time of perimenopause. What it is, what it does, how it works, what it's like. If so, you should check out my Udemy course called The Basics of Female Bioidentical Hormone Replacement Therapy. The course goes over the pros and cons of using hormone treatment, which hormones are usually included with BHRT, how they're used, the lab tests that are used, some tips for finding a prescriber in pharmacy to work with, and how to develop a rough estimate of how much BHRT will cost you. If you've been wondering whether bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is right for you, it's time to close that open loop, stop wondering, and move forward with confidence. Enroll in my course today. As a listener of the podcast, you can get a special discount for the very best price. It's a no-brainer. I would just tell you the coupon code, but Udemy makes me change it every month. So check the show notes or go to www.healthcouragecollective.com/Udemy to find the special podcast listener discount code that's only for awesome people like you. Okay, back to the episode. You have to realize ahead of time that you're going to come to a place where you want to quit. Tiptoeing out the back door will sound mighty appealing. What are you going to do then? When you realize that the journey is the reward rather than the destination, you can focus on the process rather than the outcome. Ironically, perfectionism or having really high standards can lead to mediocrity. We have to be willing to be bad at something when we first start. Consistency doing behaviors that seem small in comparison to the grand achievement we're trying to make is more important than doing big things. A few little steps every single day is way better than a heroic effort once or twice, followed by months or years of berating yourself for not being able to repeat that level of intensity. The outcome, the top of the rugged mountain, is still useful as a guiding star, but the real reward is in becoming the kind of person capable of getting to the top. Whether you actually get there doesn't matter that much, as long as you have become the kind of person who can. And then you usually do. I have this framed quote up in my house because I love it. Jim Rohn says, "We all say that we want to succeed, but sooner or later our level of activity must equal our level of intent. Talking about achievement is one thing. Making it happen is something altogether different. Some people seem to take more joy in talking about success than they do in achieving it. It is as though their ritualistic chant about someday lulls them into a false sense of security, and all the things that they should be doing and could be doing on a given day never seem to get done. The consequences of this self-delusion have their own inevitable price. Sooner or later, the day will arrive when they will look back with regret at all those things they could have done and meant to do, but left undone. That is why we must push ourselves in the present to experience the milder pain of discipline. We all experience one pain or the other, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. But the difference is that the pain of discipline weighs only ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons." End quote. Okay, I don't have that whole thing framed, just that the pain of discipline weighs ounces while the pain of regret weighs tons. And I never thought about this till now, but I'm reading Joe DeSena's book, 10 Rules for Resilience right now, and I was just trying to figure out where I could hang up a quote that I've heard him say in person before, but in the book he says, "I know the truth. Everything is hard. Life is hard. Health is hard. Burpees are hard. Eating right is hard. Honesty is hard. Integrity is hard. Changing habits is hard. Parenting is hard. Because my job puts me in such close contact with people who are desperate to transform their lives, I also have the unique privilege of seeing what else is hard. Obesity is hard. Depression and anxiety are hard. Complacency is hard. Mediocrity is hard. I tell everyone, choose your hard." End quote. I love that so much, and I'm just now starting to see a trend here with the choose your hard versus choose your pain, and he even mentions mediocrity. Mediocrity is hard. Arambashura is hard. Being a hero in the beginning rather than the end is hard. Being a hero at the end rather than the beginning is hard. Getting to the top of the rugged mountain is hard. Stopping in the middle of the rugged mountain is hard. Doing the things that other people don't want to do is hard. Working the drive-up window is hard. And making decisions that affect the 10-year future of a $201 billion corporation is hard. Choose your hard. It's easy right now to do things that help us enjoy the next 5 minutes. It's hard right now to do things that will help us enjoy the next 5 decades. If we choose the easy right now, our next 5 decades will be exponentially harder. If we choose the hard now, our next 5 decades will be exponentially easier. What are your health goals or other life goals? What would change about the way you think about them if you took the decade view? Rather than beating yourself up over what you haven't been able to accomplish in 6 weeks, what could you accomplish in 10 years? Like Matthew Kelly said, until you take the decade view, until you begin to imagine and plan what you can do in a decade, you have not even begun to explore your potential. Don't sell yourself short. Begin to explore your potential. What can you imagine yourself being able to do in 10 years? What feels most right to you? What have you always wanted to do but don't actually believe is possible for you? It's probably possible to do in 10 years. Do you want to face the hard reality of all the difficulties you'll encounter on the way to that rugged mountaintop? Or would you rather deal with the difficulty of mediocrity and the pain of regret? The joy you'll experience won't come from achieving your goal, but in the struggle to become the kind of person who can do that thing that's calling to you. Letting your dream fall on deaf ears is hard. Eventually it will stop whispering to you, and that's even harder. Whatever your dream is, I promise you it will be easier to achieve if your cells are all functioning properly, if your brain function is sharper than ever, your bones and muscles are strong, your inflammation is low, and your energy is high. You can create that reality. Let's get you 100% consistent, following an intelligent plan to age like a professional so that you're prepared to take the decade view of your life and choose your hard. It's about getting systematic about the highest leverage behaviors that drive the results that will get you where you want to be 10 years from now. But not really. It's really about becoming the kind of person who can create that reality. And you are. You can do it. You can become that person. I can help you. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful, but it's not as hard and painful as not becoming her. I love the Abraham Maslow quote that says, "We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments." It's scary to go all in and try to do something we've never been able to do before, like get 100% consistent with healthy behaviors. And it's scary not to. Since I started reading Off Balance by Matthew Kelly, I started listening to a bunch of books by him. He has one called Building Better Families and one called In the Rhythm of Life that I've listened to. I just like his perspective on things. He's a devout Catholic, which I'm not, but I am religious and I like his philosophies. He has a ton of other books that I haven't even started yet. Anyhow, in the book Off Balance, he says, "Too often we think the life we want is unattainable. In some ways, that may be true, but in other ways, it's a complete myth. Imagine the life you want to live. It may seem impossible, but the tiniest sliver of it may be available to you right now. Grasp it and enjoy it. Before you know it, another slice of that life will become available. Do the same. Savor it. Be grateful for it. This is how lives are built. You don't go at a beautiful cake with a fork. You cut yourself a slice, large or small, and sit down to really enjoy it. In the same way, the lives we want to live are built one slice at a time. Stop waiting for the whole cake to present itself to you on a platter." He also says, "Too often we don't know what we want. We approach our lives with no strategy, and in general, we're hoping things will work out. It's time we took our destinies into our own hands. We can't sit around thinking, hoping, waiting for something wonderful to happen. We need to take a proactive approach. And to the extent that we do, everyone who crosses our path will benefit." End quote. So good. I care about you taking the decade view of your life and choosing the hard of executing a strategic plan every day to biologically age more slowly than you're chronologically aging so that everyone who crosses your path will benefit. Come on over to my website at www.healthcouragecollective.com or message me at healthcouragecollective@gmail.com if you're looking to get consistent with your intelligent strategy. Next week, we're going to talk about why you want to stress yourself on purpose. Until then, stop waiting for a whole cake to present itself to you on a platter. Take the decade view and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.